This is a special Sunday edition of HBCU Coaches Corner. Let's let him get on here, Coach. We had about 200 in there watching G's show.
Did you let them know we were coming on behind you?
Yeah, they knew it. And only on the Rocky Miller channel, the home of HBCU Coaches Corner. First off, I'd like to welcome everybody to a special edition of HBCU Coaches Corner. This is the Sunday edition. And we might want to call this the Alcorn Sunday because we had G on earlier on my podcast and we got Coach Thomas coming right up. But before we get any of that done, I got to make sure I welcome in my co-host, Mr. Stephen Campbell, CEO of iWeave, and also the SWAC legend himself, went on one night in the fall of 1985. He threw for 6 touchdowns against Jerry Rice and the vaunted Willie Satellite Totten. With no further ado, my man, Johnnie Cole. What's up, Coach?
Hey, every time we open up the show, man, you bring that one memory back, Coach. And man, it was a hell of a night, Coach. But I can't ever forget either. Hey, at least I'm not saying it was 7 touchdowns. It's been so long ago. You know how when you get older, the story get bigger. But it was a great night that night. But man, look, I can't do it without y'all too, man. And our show is bigger and better. And like I said, I want to thank the fans that we had over 2 million followers, viewers, Coach. 2 million viewers. That's saying something in 1 year's time. So we moving this program in the right direction, and hopefully we continue to do what we set out to do. That's give our HBCU coaches a platform to let everybody know that we got some guys that can coach some football.
Absolutely, Coach. I'd like to ask the fans and followers at this point to share our broadcast and all of your favorite SWAC groups. SWAC the Fool, not SWAC the Fool, Roughing the SWAC, SWAC and MEAC Talk. Because this is an interview that really we've been trying to line up for about a week now, Coach. And you were very excited to get it on. Due to some unfortunate circumstances, we had to delay it, man. But I wanted to say on a Sunday, Coach, how many times did you actually work on a Sunday in your coaching career?
Yeah, well, Sunday was a big day for us. It was a day after the game that we wanted to go through the game, get it over with, and then we had Monday off. We took Monday off. So that gave us Sunday, Monday, Tuesday during the day because we practiced it Tuesday night to give us the opportunity to prepare for the next game. And, we worked on Sundays.
Oh, so working on Sunday you're not a stranger to working on Sunday, huh, Coach? I am a stranger to working on Sunday, Coach. I just want you to know that. Coach, I need some double time today, Coach. I don't know about you. What about you, Steve?
Man, listen, I have worked Sundays, not Sundays, double Sundays. Man, listen, if it's getting money, you got to get it, man. We getting money today. So, man, I'm super excited, man. And like I say, Coach Thomas, with those big bad Braves from my home state of Mississippi, have seen a lot of great talent come out of that school and a lot of great games I watched in that stadium and down there on that reservation. And also I've done a little business down there with iWeave down there. So, man, love Alcorn and can't wait to see what Coach is going to tell us about it. Because I got one good question for you. I got that good question for them coaches.
And Coach, I want to also say, Coach, this may be Coach Thomas's second or third time on HBCU Coaches Corner. And it's the second time?
Yeah.
Okay. Was he he was the head man then too? Okay. So like I say, Coach, Coach Thomas got 2 showings on HBCU Coaches Corner, and we still waiting on some coaches to get their first showing on HBCU Coaches Corner. So I want to thank Coach Thomas for being so gracious and joining us. But with no further ado, I'll step aside so the coach can do his introduction.
Yeah. Well, this is a Mississippi great. You know, he started his career off in Mississippi. He's done most of his coaching in Mississippi. He's been a defensive back coach. He's been a assistant head coach. He's been a defensive coordinator, of course, and he's known as one of the best recruiters out of Mississippi. He can go get them. He can go hunt. You know, he took the head job at UAPB. He done a good job, but he jumped back into the Division I-A rank at Southern Miss. He's just about coached everywhere except for Jackson State and Mississippi Valley. But now he's heading the Alcorn State Braves. They finished 6-6 last year, which is always good when you're a first-year coach. Just not having a losing season is enough, but he was right there again, a game or two. They probably would have been playing in the West Division Championship. Without further ado, my friend, also his wife, we want to take a prayer out for her that she ended up losing her mother some couple of days ago, and Coach is really handling a lot of things. I know it's heavy on his heart, but he thought enough for us, you know, to take time out of his day, man, to you know, come and talk about Alcorn State football. So I know he has a lot of things on his mind. We ain't gonna keep him long, but without further ado, the head coach of Alcorn State Braves, Coach Thomas.
Yo, what's up with it, fellas?
Well, I had to get your applause together, Coach.
Yeah.
Coach Thomas, how you doing, man, today, man? Again, you know, we can't say enough about you taking the time out of your busy schedule and giving us an opportunity and give your fans opportunity. Man, I'll let you start off with, from an Alcorn State person looking at this today, which we have well over 200 viewers already. What would you tell your Alcorn State Braves fans?
No, it's a blessing, you know, to get on here. I want to thank you guys for having this platform for so many years. You know, I've been a part of it for a long time. You couldn't find it. And so that kind of hindered, you know, our voice from, you know, guys like you and the platform of young brothers that's growing up in it. You kind of lose that because you can't find that in the library. You can't find that in no cliff notes, you know. And so it's like them old stories, you know, that changed. My dad, you know, was at a lot of those games. He was actually at that game that you did that. You know, he was a SWAC guy himself. But I just want to thank you guys for the coaches who hadn't been on. You know, please get opportunity, you know, to get on the fellowship with you guys just to spread the message. You know, I was a 15, 14, 13-year-old brother that didn't understand SWAC, just all sports. And now we got this platform. So it's really our priority for us, you know, to be able to just get out and just spread the content as much as we can. And to the Brave Nation, you know, we're going to put our best foot forward. We got some things in the workings. We're a better football team, not because we're bigger and better, but we did it the right way. You know, I come from the junior college ranks and it's still development. And I understand, you know, right now with the NIL portion, you know, everybody think it's microwave success where you just throw it in there, put it on 30 seconds and rock it back with a ready product. But I refuse to put my collective in ones that's investing in these programs, you know, such as the 1871, to go big and borrowing for money for kids' skill set. You know, it's got to be the right kids, you know, that's going to come in and be cultural fixtures in this program. The first and the most important foundation of piece is going to school. If you don't go to school, you won't come outside and have recess here. And that's my final my final say on that, you know. So that's going to be the most important thing. And outside of that, you know, we're going to get the right kids in to help us, you know, turn the program into the looking and likes that we want. You know, my thing is we can't pay them all. You know, it's going to be hard pressed for me to just pay one or two. You know, it's unfair for the quarterback to get it and then he won't spend it on the O-line. The O-line need it also. And I know everybody can't get it. However, you know, they make sure they reach out to me about some of the things, you know, and how they want to appropriate those funds, which is a blessing. I'm glad they, you know, kind of run it by me. But we understand, you know, where we at, and you know, we'll be a better football team. So we're excited about this year. The coaches have done an amazing job. Go and recruit those pieces that we need to get ourselves in that championship game.
Yeah, Coach, you know, you're known as a great recruiter, and you led off with the NIL and the collectives and stuff. It used to be, man versus man. You go in and, you sell yourself, he sell himself. Now you got to go in there with a suitcase, and whoever's suitcase is the biggest. How have that affected you and your ways of coaching? Of course, you got the philosophy with your assistant coaches.
It hadn't changed for me, because at the end of the day, we ain't gonna just run around, throwing money out, just for their skill set, because sometimes it's just like any type of stock market or any other investment. Sometimes it's bad investment, and then you sit there and you hoard all of it, and then you don't get a return on your interest. But also, I look at the guys that's in the locker room. How dare me go bring guys in because they was at bigger institutions, or might have had a more yardage, or their skill set might entail a little more incline. But these guys invested in us, and they parents, right out of high school. We got some 4-year guys, some guys that have been here 2 or 3 years. But I think it's unfair for me to just go grab guys to put them in front of them and then invest in them. And so with our collective, we did a really good job, and they do a good job. I wanted to invest in the guys that's here that chose Alcorn, right off. And so, we've done that. We got some really good some guys that, now that's a part of that collective. But for the most part, we're going to go out and we're going to get the right guys to fit the Alcorn brand and fit our culture. And so we won't run around and just be throwing money, all over the place. We was a couple plays away with what we had. And now I feel like from a recruiting standpoint, the retention piece may be the biggest thing right now is, once they put that product out there and they do well, it's going to be hard for us to sit here and, tell Malachi Bailey when he's going and getting X amount of $1,000 at Arizona to expect him to stay. And we don't. And so, we just got to find the next one and develop him. And financially, if he can get that same, boost, then, that's what we want.
Yeah. Now, Coach, your head coaching, how you became the head coach was different from a lot, because you were already on the staff, and did the transition hurt you? You finished 6-6. Y'all was pretty good the year before. You was finished 6-6. Did it kind of hurt you a little bit because of how the transition? It was a timing thing. It was, is Coach McNair coming back? Are we going to get a job to Coach Thomas? Did you lose players? Did you think that it went into the, the fall season with some of that on the season, or how did that work out?
We felt, right where I thought we should have. Him leaving, we love Coach Mack. I love Coach Mack, to death. One of the greatest 10 human beings I ever walked across and be a part of. So, we was, sad that happened. But my thing was this, Coach, I didn't want to go in last minute. I get the job in January and just run around the nation paying for players. I could have put pressure on my collective to go get this transfer or that transfer. I just refused not to do it. I told everybody in the first meeting, hey, scholarships, you still have them. This gonna be your developmental piece, but it's also gonna be your proven year to go out and do it. I knew what my contract entailed, so I wasn't in a hurry, but I wasn't gonna just throw these kids out of school with moms and dads and this all they got. Just go get some more because they can run fast and jump high. And so I took a lot of heat for being 6-6 with the players that I had. But you will see those same players this year. Them training wheels will be off. Just looking at them this spring. In the year prior, we had lost 80% of our production on offense. Just had graduated. And so that was one of the biggest things of why offensively, some of the things it looked like it did, but it's also in-house. Like I said, I wasn't going to run around the nation going, throwing that bag around. We was going to, take the guys that we had. We was going to develop them, but then also get on the road and recruit the culture fixtures to help us turn it around. And we did that. And so you'll see offensively a better group of players just from a talent standpoint, but you'll see that, from the overall team, just having those guys playing a whole bunch, taking them bumps and bruises. And now this second year for us, they'll be big boys. And so we're excited about their matriculation in the system, and not only from a coaching staff, but just from a player standpoint, getting better.
Yeah, I had you guys winning it last year, so because you were there, I thought things would smooth out, but I figured that kind of maybe hurt you guys a little bit, the exchange, of you starting and now bringing in your philosophy, and all that kind of good stuff. Go ahead, guys.
Well, one of the things I talked to G with just a little earlier, a podcaster that follows Alcorn closely. He said, you guys signed a really great – your first class was a great class. Unfortunately, you were able to get a lot of those guys signed. However, not many of them made it to campus, right? How did that impact your overall performance last year?
Now, that was the biggest impact, academically, with the transfer hours, not being accepted, getting them in the summer, that kind of, we had 2 running backs, one to get hurt, but the other one, was deemed ineligible. We had a defensive end, had a quarterback on the hook that didn't get in. So it was about 5 or 6 potential, different makers on that side that just from an academic standpoint, didn't make it. And so that kind of hindered us, but who I am and who this coaching staff is, I still felt like we was good enough to at least represent our side, and can't take nothing away from Coach Graves and what those guys did, over there. But in our mind, we felt like we could do just enough with 8 starters coming back on defense to kind of hold that thing in the road to where we can just kind of steal a couple. But that's a testament to the coaching, in this league from top to bottom. And so we just didn't get it done. And so, I told those guys, hey, you had that year on me. But now the coaches got on the road and you see a bigger product, a better product, and we'll be a better football team. But having a whole year to go in and kind of dig up some of the guys in some spots and also find out those academic traps that we can rectify so we won't be in a situation. And so we had a 948 APR. So, you see what we're doing in the classroom. And now we just know what type of kids when them transcripts come in to bring in so that they are academically, accepting of the rigors, from an academic standpoint.
Hey, Coach, looking at your performance last year, you guys were competitive in every game pretty much in the SWAC other than the Jackson State game. So I don't have any doubt going into next year that you probably will be very competitive next year. But what I'd like to ask you is, being that Jackson State has firmly established themselves at the top of the heap, what are some of the things as a coaching staff that you've done to kind of close that gap between a Jackson State who's won 3 out of 4 SWAC championships the last 3? Now you guys have beat them in that 4-year run, but what have you done to kind of close the gap between yourself and the team like Jackson State?
Yeah, that's a great question. And not just them, but Southern also. So as soon as it was over, I took them rosters. I took they 2 deep, and I took the guys who played a lot. And I told the coaches, hey, we looked at those measurables, the height, the weight, the length, the speed, far as, the eye test. And I told our guys, hey, look, if they don't look like that, then we don't want them. There's some exceptions in there where you got some guys that may be smaller, but also, that there's some exceptions in there. However, we had to get our roster in the trenches, the same way we had to get our rosters on the back end, the same way with the Irv Mulligan, bigger back that's down here that could pound you, the Terrell that could change the game over from a special team standpoint. And so that wasn't hard, that wasn't hard. So we looked at both of those rosters the same as Southern with that defense that they had, with the length of those DBs. And so now, we got guys that look like that. I can honestly say it wasn't one game where we came in where we said schematically, oh, man, they got us. They out-schemed us. They out-coached us. They just bullied us around. And I've been saying it ever since the media day. We was a good little team, and we lost to, big good teams. And so we'll be a good big team. And so once them X's and O's lay out, then now it's just down to execution and who going to do all the little things on and off the field.
You can go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
Coach, first of all, appreciate you coming on. One of the things that I looked at, and I love what you said, because we had Coach Jackson. He said, he talked about the fight the dog. He said he want big dogs that can fight. So it sounds like you had that same strategy and understanding. And Coach, one thing about it, and we have a lot of younger people that doesn't understand. Alcorn and Jackson State are built different, and they've always been built different. And one thing, and me being from Mississippi, the one thing people know about Alcorn kids, the toughness of an Alcorn player. So even when you say the size, but it's always the toughness. So when I'm sitting back and looking at, it's 2 things I want to ask you, and I'm going to start with. Talk about when I'm looking at what you did in the portal, but also what you did. It looked like you bought some high school kids in JUCOs, but then you look like you kind of picked and choose certain guys from the portal. So let's talk about your high school and JUCO. What was your thought process on bringing those kids in, and why do you think they're going to be important to build further, and then going to the transfer portal to get a guy that, hey, maybe you can take us over the top?
So we still, from a developmental piece, we still want high school kids. The thing is, they got to get here in January. I can't and won't take a high school kid that's going to get in here in May. For example, we got kids, we got one DB that came in May. Well, for summer, he graduated in May. He get in July. We play a game in August. This kid, he won't be able to play. We're a decent football team, but by the time he learned and understand what's going on, he'd be week 9, week 10. And so, but we also got a really good freshman from McDonough 35 who was here for 5 months. Not only did he get 16 hours toward graduation, where he'll have opportunity in maybe 4 years to be getting his master's degree, but he also in the rotation because he had those 5 months to develop his body, understand the playbook, and so he's in the rotation. So we always want high school kids that can get in January, not just from an academic standpoint, but athletically also. And then JUCO, those guys fresh off of bus rides and $5 pieces, them guys tough as you can find, especially in Mississippi. And so they understand the rigors. You get them here and they're not overwhelmed by what we don't have. We say it all the time. Limited resources don't mean limited mindset. And so they get that. So they hit the ground running. And so just all the guys and relationship that I have with those coaches, I always tap back in there. And then it's just like you said, just the cultural fixtures of the transfers. You go get a Tobias Harris from Tobias Singles, from Hattiesburg that was at Mississippi State, big time defensive end. You go get Jarvis Rush, Chris Blair, you see him, doing his thing right now in the NFL. He actually called us and he hand delivered, Jarvis, that which is a really good player. Jacoby Matthews, Willie, gets the FIU job, and he called me about, that young man that he wasn't going to be able to keep. But all those are Mississippi kids. Those are kids that left the state, went to other institutions, and decided to come back. And so they understand Alcorn. A lot of those guys have been here. And then there's a couple more, but that's just the psychological aspect of what we want our kids to understand getting here. And then that's just the recruiting process. And one of the components we use, as we recruit those kind of kids, especially for this year.
Now, Coach, you brought in 2 quarterbacks in the portal. Now, was that when you were looking at that enhanced the competition, or you told these guys, hey, there's an opportunity for you to start next year?
Yeah, it was an open competition, and we wanted guys who played. You look at Jalen, I think maybe 2 years ago he was on that roster when Howard was at the Celebration Bowl. So even if we always say if you're not in the game, you're still a part of the game. So he understands what that preparation looked like. He understands what it took to get there. So he hit the room. And he understands that because we don't have anybody now that was on our Celebration Bowl run. We don't have any guys who was on the Western or Eastern Conference Championship team. So we need to bring that pedigree, in the room. And so he understood he's competing for the job. Trey been here, for a while. And so those guys are competing. And then you go get a really good player who was a part of the MEAC over at South Carolina State, but also at Charlotte. That's a Division I transfer that played Andre. And so those guys competing. It's getting right close time for us to make a decision, and we'll do that in the next couple of days. So that was the thought process around the quarterback situation.
All right, Coach, last thing, I'm going to turn it back. One of the things that we talk about that Alcorn toughness. And one of the things that I'm excited about and talk about, the 2 players I want you to talk about that's on the all SWAC team, because we always know Alcorn, when Alcorn's been successful, was always, other than Steve McNair era, of course, when it was Air McNair, but Alcorn was known as that tough running game. Now, you got a running back, first team all SWAC, Jacorin Seward. Why is he going to be special this year? And what do you think he's going to bring this year that he didn't bring last year as added to his game?
Long speed. We only had really one running back last year. When you think of Alcorn in that run, it was 3 or 4 of them, and we got 3 or 4 now. You talking about Ragsdale, DeLance Turner, Aaron Baker. It's a lot of running backs. Nico Duffy, Agent Zero, Leatherwood. So when we was at our best, we always had 2 or 3 running backs. And so I sat back and looked at that championship run, not only the ones I was part of, but even when I got back with Coach Mack. And so we had to go get 2 or 3 running backs to take that pressure off of Sewell, because down the stretch, 3rd and 4th quarter, he wasn't as explosive because he getting, 28 carries, 27 carries. So we're gonna cut some of those carries. And we got a really good, UT Chat transfer. That was an all-conference kid, Reggie Davis and Tyler Citizen, a ULL transfer. And we got 3 quality backs. So you'll see him be a lot more durable, and you'll see the long speed out of Sewell. But he's definitely Fayette, Natchez, and Mississippi tough.
Now, Coach, your last guy on the defense, Samaria Edwards, your linebacker, your tough guy, all SWAC.
He from where we from, Hollandale, Mississippi. I had him in junior college, and then when I transfer over, he come. And, I was disappointed that he left, to go to Norfolk. But I think, that was that old saying that the grass ain't green on the other side. So I think when he got up there and he seen the Vic experiment for him, wasn't the Vic experiment that, maybe shown on social media, like, Coach, this ain't it. I need to get back home. And so my thing for him was, look, we'll do that, but also you're in grad school, man. We got to finish this master's degree. You talking about 25, 26, getting out of society as a young black male with a master's degree, especially coming from where we coming from. I need to help you with that, but you got to help yourself academically, whether you make it to the NFL or not. So, man, we're just so glad he came back, and he understands now the decision that he's made, and he really going to help and anchor this defense down for us.
All right, Coach. Well, one thing Coach, I think you said something most important. And Coach, I know you understand because you talked about your academic career and what was so important. The fact that you told him not that NFL, but get that master's degree because of who and what you will be going forward. And I think that's what's really so special when we talk about players that come to the HBCU, because, I understand the Power 5, they go to the NFL. But what you just told him was a life lesson, that getting that Alcorn master's degree is going to take him so much further and something that he can pass on. Because I appreciate you pointing that out, because I think a lot of coaches talk X's and O's, but they don't type life in zeros, as I like to say. So go ahead.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I'm a part of it because Dr. Johnnie Thomas, when Coach talk about that Roger Totten was the OC here. And so when he come to Pine Bluff, him and Willie Fortune from my hometown, Cleveland, Mississippi. So I was a student assistant. My head coach tell me that I'm going to be the grad assistant. So I'm excited, but the last minute he pulled it from me. I had never met Dr. Thomas a day in my life, but the relationship in the HBCU circuit, he tell me, hey, look, go to Alcorn, somebody waiting on you. Never met him a day in my life. And when I get here, I get an opportunity to get in the master's program. Now, keep in mind, I got a 15 on the ACT. I took it 5 times. Had to go to junior college as a prop. And I'm sitting like, man, I barely got a BS. I know I ain't finna get no master's. But he worked with me. I did what I was supposed to do. And here I am, with my master's degree. So that's what I tell these young brothers. Hey, if you go and do what you're supposed to do and surround yourself with some relationships, man, this thing for life. It's a 40-year decision, not a 4-year decision.
Outstanding, Coach. I appreciate it. We're gonna keep pushing that message. So don't folks, you better listen. That Coach gonna get you right. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate that.
Hey, Coach, I got something to follow up with you. You mentioned your running backs, Coach. And with all due respect, Coach, y'all didn't have no problem running the ball last year. Y'all was able to move the ball on the ground quite effective. But y'all did, in my opinion, struggle to pass the ball in the air. What have you done to address that circumstance and situation moving forward, or you just say we just a running team and that's how we're gonna do it?
Now you just can't be no running team. You got to be multifaceted in all of it. We just didn't have the personnel. When I go back and I evaluated, Coach, defense and offense, the plays are there, but how we rectified, you will see 6'4", about 210 Jarvis Rush on one end. You will see 6'3", 205 Elijah Griffin from Coffeyville, Kansas on one end. You'll see Nico Sander for 6'2", 205 on the outside. On the other end, then you'll see Tyron, who was here last year at 6'3", 185 in the slot. And then you'll see all the little wideouts that we had last year outside. They'll be in the slot. So that's how we rectified it. And we got some quarterbacks that'll get it to them. But I dare you this year to give us an 8-man box. And if we got to throw it 40, 50 times, then we're going to do it and we'll be able to win. And so that's how we rectified it. But it wasn't anything with the play calling. We could only do what our personnel allowed us to do. We got pushed around on the edges. Those guys was natural slots, but 2 of the wideouts couldn't get in. And so that kind of stymied us, from throwing the football. But I bet you when we do this show next year, it'll definitely be a different. Coach,
I'm just going off of what you sound like, Coach. You sound like passing the ball is going to be a strength for this team, Coach. Is that am I misplaying that?
Yeah, most definitely. I've been with Gales, 2 or 3 times, and we led the league. I think he was second in the league at UAPB with the talent that we had. We just had to take time to go get our guys in here, and them guys recruited. But we're gonna do what it takes to win. And so, you won't be able to 8-man boxes. I promise you that. And you won't see 7 touchdowns or 9 or whatever it was last year. I'm betting my check on that.
Now I'm gonna step away because you're talking about the passing game, and we have a passing game guru on this show. So, Coach Cole, how happy are you to hear that from Coach Thomas? You're muted, Coach. You're muted.
Yeah. When I was around the league, of course, we always had, great quarterbacks coming out, and since the spread offense, I think that's hurt a lot of quarterbacks because you don't use the drop back system. Everybody's in the RPO, And so, the game has changed, and more running quarterbacks, first than throwing second is just not around as much. But Coach, I gotta ask you. I'm a Texas Southern guy on the inside. Boy, y'all struggle with Texas Southern every year, whether y'all beat them or lose to them. What is it about Texas Southern that Alcorn State just can't come in there like an Alcorn State team, and beat a perennial losing program?
On the roads, I think it's got to be that nightlife, man. Them guys got to be sneaking out when we go out there, boy, I tell you. That we go down and got a chance to solidify the West or the East at the time, a couple years ago, and they stick us up on a Sunday. They come here for homecoming. I think we must have partied too hard, and they stick us up for homecoming. But man, that's just a tough football team that has had our numbers in some situations. So, my thing to them last year was, man, we ain't in no position to take nobody light. And I think that's why we was able to, win convincingly. And so that's going to be the mindset from here on out. But the coach has done a really good job, going into his second year. And last year, he had some injuries, and he's doing a really good job with that program. But man, they had our numbers, and whether it's in Houston or in Lorman, boy, that's definitely been a tough one. And you know how it is in this thing, man. It just seems like some of them teams, they just have your number. Especially now when you're dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-old brains who just think they can show up. So psychologically as coaches, we got to continue to just make sure we're pounding their mindset to understand that, in this league, the parity is, man, any Thursday, any Saturday, any Sunday, you can be had.
Yeah. Man, looking where y'all was, and y'all still was in the fight for winning the conference last year. You only was one game out, and how do you feel? It sounds like you feel like this year you got the pieces together. It sounds like, even when I talked to you last year, that's why I kind of picked you, because not only, that you were there on the staff, I like your philosophy and the way, how you go about today. Where did you think during last season that you felt that y'all wasn't going to get there, or was it a certain game that you knew that y'all could walk in and win or should win, y'all end up losing the game?
I thought we had a really good chance in Southern. You look at it, we go up, 7. It's homecoming, and it take an hour to get from the hotel to the stadium. And I'm looking at some of them eyes, man. I'm saying, boy, they ain't got earth like this. Remember, we ain't got, them championship guys. So, they looking for stuff, and we 30 minutes behind, and we trying to push them out, and they getting around. I'm looking at them eyes as they look in front of, 30,000 or 25,000, whatever it was. And we get out early. But then, defensively, they just kind of stymied us, and then they just got to doing what they do, and they just pushed us around. It's +3, +4, +5. Even if they didn't score, they turned the field over and put the offense, in a situation that we couldn't throw it. So they just boxed us in. And so I knew right then, just looking at their measurables, I still felt all the way down to that last drive. We had opportunity, but you can't take nothing away from Coach Graves. And Coach, I had to look back at myself and then just honestly say, we wasn't ready. We wasn't ready. Our roster wasn't good enough. We didn't do well enough as a coaching staff. And it just wasn't our time. And so I knew, as I made mental notes, not to have that feeling going in, for this year, to just make sure I do everything along with the coaching staff, to have the personnel to give us an opportunity to be successful, in that game, in the Jackson game, in the Alabama State game, which we had a chance. And so we wanted to do that from a recruiting standpoint, to right our wrongs. And so I feel pretty good about this roster. And I know everybody this time of year does. And so we still got to go out, got to execute, got to play at a high level. We just know we got some more pieces now to help us.
Yeah, Coach, and this question is just about you. I've seen where you started from as a player, junior college, went on to the SWAC, became a coach. You end up getting your first head job at Pine Bluff. You jump back. I guess you missed Mississippi and went back to Southern Miss.
It's called Purge. It's called retirement. It's called your highest 4 years.
Alcorn State is one of the premier, football schools in the state of Mississippi. Man, just how did you feel walking out for the first time as a head coach, if you can remember, and just how you feel now? You're sitting in the head coach's office. I know as a head coach and wanting to be a head coach of my alma mater, how does it feel, Coach? You You know, and I know the way you got it ain't the, you know, one would say the best way, but you deserve to be in that seat. And had that ever sit back on you and say, man, it's been a road, but damn, you know, I'm here.
What God said it was the best way. You know, I don't care about what man say. You know, the universe said this is the best way. And I put my best foot forward. And you know, honestly, coach, I really ain't thought about it. You know, it's been on the go. You know, ever since then, trying to get to, you know, I want what TC got raising that trophy. You know, I want what Willie Simmons got. I want what Fred McNair got. You know, I want what Jay Hobson got. And so I really hadn't had time. You know, my wife on me all the time about, hey, you just got to debrief, sit back in. And I'm saying, yeah, I do it when it's over, but I gotta raise that trophy. And so that's my whole deal, you know, being at this place. The pressure ain't from the outside, of the pressure on me. I feel like me and my staff are good enough. I've been a part of it. I know what it looks like. You know, the Lord has blessed me with this opportunity. And I feel like the time is near. And so I really hadn't, coach. You know, I really hadn't sat down one time and just said, man, well, this ain't bad for a kid from Cleveland, Mississippi with a 15 on the test because we constantly getting it. We constantly get it. And my paranoia is to go back there. And so I don't want to go back there. You know, I want to make sure that when I shut it down, I'm going to do it on my term. And I can say, boy, you fought a good fight. But until then, you know, my mission is to raise that trophy, not only for me, but for this institution and everybody who don't have a whole lot, because you don't have to have a whole lot to be successful. You know, you just got to maximize what you got and do well with it. And that's what we're going to do. And so to answer your question again, Coach, no, man, I really hadn't thought about it. You know, I get it more so from younger coaches, you know, saying, yo, coach, man, I'm going to get in that seat. You know, what I need to think about. And I'm like, yeah, you better think about hiring some coaches, you know, because right now you got to coach coaches. You know, it ain't just sitting dealing with kids. You know, you better be worrying about who gonna pick that phone up when you do call them, because all of them your buddies now. But when you bring that salary up, they might say, man, I don't know, man. You know, yeah, I would think about it. You know, so I really hadn't. Right now, we still going, blessed and honored to be at this great institution, blessed and honored, you know, for the support of my family, but also what God has done for me is really amazing.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned collective and NIL. Does Alcorn State in your program can afford that? I mean, you guys have a collective.
1871. 1871 has been huge, man. I'm telling you, huge. They make a lot of things shake for hours, you know, and they allowed me to add parameters around how, you know, they're going to distribute those funds. Because like I said, we ain't just throwing them. This ain't Oprah. You get a car, you get a car. You know, it's going to be some things academically that's going to, you know, be tapered to that. It's going to be some things community-based that's going to be tapered to that, you know, and it's not just you getting paid because you can run fast and jump high. You know, it's going to be some things inside of that that's going to help my locker room, because if 10 or 12 getting it and the other 85 not, you know, it's just hard pressing. I got a son, you know, and I'm dealing with everybody else's son. And I just think at the end of the day, it won't be fair, but it's going to be right, you know, for the building. And so far, man, our collective has done an amazing job to keep us in this hunt. You know, just with the NIL.
Now you say 1871. Is that the name of the alumni group?
That's the collective. That's 1871 collective.
Okay, because we could tell people. I'm pretty sure they'll take some more Alcorn State followers to join.
Yeah,
or is it a select
1871 group? Collective. Yep.
Okay, and I guess we try to find out how we can get to that, Bishop. How we can put that up, and maybe y'all have some more alumni.
You muted, Bishop. You muted.
Member.
Oh yeah, I know about it. Matter of fact, I talked to some of those guys down there. I think they have a link. I'll get the link and post it in the chat.
Yeah, we want to post that to help you know, you guys out, and you know, you might have, I'm pretty sure some other guys want to probably be a part of that organization.
Yeah, these young brothers appreciate it. We really appreciate it.
Hey, Coach Thomas, I want to ask you something that G mentioned in my conversation with him earlier. He said that you really have the ear of the team to the point to these guys are in the cafeteria walking around campus really saying your catchphrases, using your jargon. They're just becoming an extension of you and your coaching staff. How is that established where you get these young 18 to 22-year-old men in a situation where they are able to connect to the point with a middle-aged man, and where they're using his jargon, using his catchphrases, telling his teammates something about the labor pains and the baby and all that kind of stuff? Well, how do you get them buying into that to the point to where it's becoming part of the lexicon of how they communicate with one another.
It's amazing that you said that. So a prime example, camp is over. G actually did a pot for the coaching staff. Me and the wife, we hanging out. But I get a phone call at 1:30 in the morning, and I'm looking at it, and I don't want to answer it, but I got to answer it. It's my starting corner, Tavon Haney, kid from Little Rock, and he crying. It's historical on the phone, and he's coach. I walked outside. I see my dad pass, and I'm like, I'm on the phone with him. I didn't have to pick that phone up. I know a lot of coaches that I worked with and been a part of that wouldn't have picked that phone up. But I picked that phone up. And so they know we care. When they can't get the moms and dads, that's just an example happened this morning. But they know I'm in the foxhole with them. I know grown people lie. I know grown people don't always side with kids, so they'll tell fibs on them. And so my thing to them is, hey, you got to have documentation. I don't always take grown people's side just because they say, Coach, he did this or he did that. We live in a world of documentation because it's easy to say, oh, that's just a football team or that's just a football player. And they see I've done that in front of administration, to support them. My thing to them is just don't lie to me. But somebody else can have this job before I go and sit here and let grown people treat young adults, any kind of way because they in America not as high. And so they understand that. And so, Rock, I'm in the foxhole with them. I wasn't always Coach Thomas. I wasn't always right. I had some coaches to really reel me in. When mama dropped me off with that green Bible, and I ain't know no scriptures in it. I'm just trying to find my way. And I tell them that. And so they know we care. And we don't just talk about it. And we don't put all these PowerPoints up with all this reading off of it. Man, it's just genuine. I'm going to get up out this bed. I'm going to do what I got to do, not just myself, but these coaches. And so when they know that, they're an extension of us and we care. And so that's why when they're around campus, they saying certain things and just mocking us and trolling and having fun, but because they know we love them and we show that we love them and we tell them we love them.
And what was the saying? Because G said it, and he said says nobody don't care about the labor pains; they just want to see the babies.
Yeah. Don't tell me about the labor pains. Show me the baby. Everybody want. A lot of people just want to talk, and that's what didn't happen a lot in society. It used to be. You judge a man by his action, but now people talking so much that you'll forget about how he walking and you'll just listen to him. And when you sit down and break him down, he ain't did nothing. He just talking. And so that's our mantra, don't tell me about the labor pain, just show me what's going to come up out of there. And now I can believe you. And so that's kind of how we tied into our everyday walk of just hooping and hollering and just, being loud, around the building and not being a part of the building.
Hey, Coach, let me ask you this. You mentioned being able to run the ball, being able to pass the ball. If you had your way, what would be the identity of this year's Alcorn State football team?
Both, both, to be multiple. Man, you got some really good coordinators defensively in this league. Man, them guys been doing it a long time. You got a lot of tape. And so, they ain't going to let you just do one thing, every Saturday in and out. So if I could get that number, anywhere from, 54% to 46%, offense, passing to run, I think we living in a really good world. But you also look at the shovel pass, even though it's technically a pass, it's really a jet sweep. It's really a run. So the analytics don't always tell the whole story. I've seen some teams, throw for 200, but the shovel pass was a 120, and he didn't throw the ball, across the line of scrimmage. But everybody say, man, what a great quarterback he is. He throwing for a lot of yards. And so we don't always just look at the analytics. We just use that as a portion. But if we could be anywhere around 54 passing to 46% running, we'll do it. But we know it's some D coordinators in this league, gonna have that mindset of, hey, they just gonna have to beat me passing and they ain't gonna have to do it. So if we throw for 500, 400, 600, we'll do it and we'll win.
Are y'all gonna play any defense this year, Coach?
Man, we better, or there's gonna be some smoke in the city. You ain't gonna be able to run that ball for no 200-300 yards. You can believe that. We've gotten bigger. We got slugs inside. We're gonna be able to box that front. We were just little. We were small. You look at 44 Malachi Bailey. He 250. He 255. Trying to play a 3 technique, trying to play a 4-eye. When really a 5 technique. You got Spotsville, who's 255. He had to play a 3 technique. Now he's a bandit. He's a true end now. Now you bring in Roscoe from East Mississippi. You bring in Deshaun Palmer, those guys 300 pounds, 305, inside there's a shade, a 3 technique. And so that's what we're excited about, and so it'll be hard pressed for you to just push us around. You can believe that up front, in whatever front we in. And so we got the pieces to rectify that, but we definitely won't see no 200-300 yards being ran on us.
With the season around the corner, coaches, there's some guys on offense or start on offense that you now can put a finger on and let the people know who, what to expect from them, as well as defense. I know you just talked about your defensive front. What about your secondary and on the offensive side of the ball? I hear you guys got a good receiving core as well.
Yeah, from a secondary standpoint, got some junior college guys in, a Division II transfer. Got 2 safeties returning, Bakari McCall and Jeffrey McKelton. So, we got some guys who played a lot of football back there. We also got Kale, Southern Miss transfer, at the nickel position who started for us last year. And so those guys will kind of be the glue pieces. And then we got some guys that, was in junior college that played really well. Patrick Kent's, he'll be on the edge, RJ Davis from Colin, so we got some depth. And then, T. Haney, the young man I just talked about from Parkview, he's coming into his junior year. So we got some length and got some guys that's, battle tested out there on the back end that we're excited about. And, that O-line for us, Coach Watson has done an amazing job, with those guys up front. That's probably the strong suit of the team right now, just with the depth. We probably got, 12, 13 guys that can play. Some of those started last year, just not, starting this year because of the recruiting standpoint. Just brought a couple guys in that's a little bit bigger, but that don't necessarily mean they better. But we established a lot of depth, on the O-line also.
Yeah. So you saying that basically you guys, some of your weaknesses was, I hear, throwing the football. I hear was weak up at the front end on the defensive side. What about depth? Do you got depth this year?
Yeah, and you see it really from the kids, because when they come in, and some of them guys that was on special teams last year come to your office and say, Coach, I started last year, Coach, I ain't on nothing. And I'm like, yeah, we went 6-6. What you starting on them? That's just the honest God truth. And I allowed them to have that mulligan for that year. And I caught hell behind it. And so I did my part by giving them opportunity to go out there. Now we're just a lot better from a personnel standpoint, but also, that guy now he becomes 1B instead of 1A. So, it's a really long season, and I told him just be patient. Your time come. We know you can do it. You've done it. But there are some other guys right now that's just ahead of you. And so we like where we at. We still can have a few more. You never can get enough. But I like the depth. I like the pieces that we have, to make this run.
Did you lose any coaches? And if you did, who was the new guys that you brought on your staff?
Alvin Fosserman, he was the DC at Prairie View, Mississippi guy from Wilkinson County. He's in handling the special team and the outside linebacker. What an amazing, pickup. Kind of been mentoring him, ever since he came to a football camp here in 2012. So we always stayed in touch. He know the lay of the land, got a lot of family and ties to it. He's been a part of the Western Conference Championship over there at Prairie View. So I tell him all the time, hey, look, you got to talk to these kids, even coaches, and let them know what that looked like. And so he's been doing an amazing job. And a former player, Tavari McCullough, he's coaching the Nickels, so I brought him in. But I'm also, in the room, a whole lot more now, dealing with the back end, just tying up the loose ends, making sure that everything now we're speaking the same language. And so my hand's in it also. And Coach Rowe has done a great job his second year, as the coordinator. And so, we look for a lot of more continuity, at that spot.
Now, what? Now, you and your defensive coordinator, because I know how it is being especially like I was an offensive guy, you're a defensive guy, and it's hard giving away that defensive coordinator's spot. Without. Is this a guy who either coached with you or worked up under you or played up under you?
Yeah, he played. He played. He played for us. And then, when I got to Pine Bluff, he got him his first job with us. He'd been coaching linebackers. And then when I came back, brought him back with me. So he's been with me, pretty much everywhere I've been. So he know it, played in it. So I'm expecting him to do an amazing job, his second year up.
And you're gonna get your hand in it just a little more now that you I wouldn't say knowing where the restroom at, but now you've got the lay of the land of being a head coach and the direction you want to go. you're gonna start making more time to get in those meeting rooms. That's what
Yeah, a lot more. Yeah, I'm in it. In it. Yeah.
Hey, Coach, let me ask you this here, because you mentioned a guy who's been part of the West. I've been covering the SWAC for the last 4 years, 5 years, and it seems like the West has kind of struggled with the East. You've been in the SWAC, most of that time. What has led to the struggles, or is it just how the cycle goes in HBCU football from time to time?
Yeah, I just think it just it's part of the cycle. When you look at the teams over there, I'd be remiss when you look at budgets. Financially, that has a lot to do with it. The ones who got some stuff consistently are the ones that's at the top. You'll get some parity here or there, but when you look at those those teams who budgets ain't as big consistently, it's hard to maintain it if you're not consistently investing in your product. And so I just think it's just a revolving cycle of how it turn year in and year out, especially with this league. And so right now, those teams over there on that other side is kind of having their way with us. But we won't be in this situation long or forever. And so we just got to keep fighting, do what's best for our institutions, and administration can continue to support and continue to just put the resources in the program, and that'll make it a whole lot more from a landscape standpoint of being equal.
Coach, let me ask you a question, and I like what you're talking about. So here's the thing: Marino Casem, Jay Hobson, Cardell Jones, Fred McNair, all conference champions. Alcorn started off the Celebration Bowl run 3 times. JSU's now gone 3 times, Coach. If you had to look at your team to break that tie and then get that victory, what is the one thing that you say, hey, Mr. Campbell, if this happens on offense, we'll be Celebration Bowl champions, and if this happens on defense, we'll be Celebration Bowl champions?
Offense and defensive line. If we can maintain the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and also not get pushed off the football, we'll have a chance. When you look at the skill per skill, it is what it is. This league has always had great dynamic skill guys, cover guys, but it's the trenches, and that team has just created just some monsters up front, and so it's gonna always start up front. When you look at that run, and even the championship game, Celebration Bowl, they dominated the line of scrimmage, and so if we can maintain our quarterback upright from an offensive line standpoint, if we can get out the guy's quarterback from a defensive line standpoint, and kicking game plays well, we're gonna have a chance.
Well, Coach, that's one of the things that, and this is what I think was so important. What I like, what I've heard, is that a lot of coaches, we interview a lot of coaches, a lot of great coaches. But the one thing I like in this interview, you have been very honest of what you said, what we need to do to be a champion. And I like the fact that I think a lot of coaches don't sit back and reflect. I think sometimes they're not honest with themselves of how to be better. And I think what I've heard from you and your staff is that we've identified. And what I also like is sometimes you got to go beat that guy, and you got to know what you need to go beat that guy. I'll tell you this from the FAMU standpoint. Jack State was beating us. We knew we had to get faster and things like that. And Coach Simmons knew that. So that was the one. And that defense was built, like I said, Deion left, but they still had a lot of great players. Same thing. Jack State turned it around. What to beat FAMU? Like you said, let's beat them up front. So I like the fact that you're looking at that from your team and said, because the one thing I think a lot of people need to understand, Alcorn has a proud tradition of winning championships, especially when people don't think they're going to win championships. Because if you go look at some of the time when you guys have won it, sometimes other people were picked. Yeah. And Alcorn, because they were able to gel and push forward. And this goes all the way back to the early 60s and then that 84 season when a lot of people didn't think that Alcorn was going to win. They were national champions that year. So, Coach, the one thing I really appreciate that you're taking the time to really explain to us your thought process. And one other thing, too, Coach, I know you keep saying about that 15 on that ACT, but let me tell you what you are. And one thing, and everybody tell you, and we all know that ACT don't mean nothing in Mississippi because you Mississippi smart. And when you Mississippi smart, they take you a long way. Trust me on that. There's a whole bunch of people they made at 15 that are multimillionaires that came out that state. So I don't ever want you to think or anybody to judge your academic excellence because you got that master's degree because you are a man of intelligence. I want to appreciate you keep pointing that out.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it also, but I'll show them that Crown Raw sack. Yeah, it's full of blessings. So yeah, I know that I'm all right with that 15 now because me and my wife can go with that Crown Raw sack a long way because we put it up.
But by the way, guys, I taught his wife at Lane College. So, and I kept his daughter before. So I'm a little biased for Coach Thomas. Beautiful daughter.
Hey, but coach, you every one of the good coaches you say you hired. Why you never hired Coach Thomas?
Well, I don't even know, Coach. Was you even? You started in 2021.
I was young. Yeah, he did right. You know, I definitely. I told you I wasn't always Coach Thomas. I would have screwed it up then. Coach, my first experience as a graduate assistant, I'm sitting here, we're playing Gremlin, and I'm in the booth, and I'm looking at everything that's going on in the crowd. And Carl Morgan say, "Hey, Coach, hey, what happened in that 3x1?" And Gary Lewis tapped me on my arm, like, "Say something." I'm like, "I can't. You know, I don't know." So he said, "I tell you what, take your headset off. Matter of fact, take your headset off and go to the locker room because you ain't no use for me." And man, told my heart out. You know, here I am as a graduate assistant, but not understanding that from a resource standpoint, they don't have a lot of coaches. They didn't. So he really needed me. You know, I spent the whole summer breaking down the tapes, but I want the Wilson. I want the call sheet. You know, I want to walk around like some of the greats, but not paying attention to detail, man. And that hurt my heart. That was the first lesson I learned about paying attention to details. And when somebody asks you to do something, you know, be ready to give them the feedback. And so we actually played Pine Bluff because that's where I was from, you know, and we was down maybe 14-0. And Coach Morgan said, "Well, I would ask Coach something, but he probably ain't paying attention." And so, but I was. And so Coach Lewis said, "Man, what's going on?" Well, I knew the hand signals. They still had the same hand signals that the quarterback was using. And I told him we ended up winning that game 28-24. And that's when he told me he was proud of me. And that's kind of how I matriculated through. Just paying attention to details, man. So that's kind of.
So you was stealing signs for Belichick?
Oh, ain't no doubt. Ain't no doubt.
Now, Coach Morgan, now you talking about defensive coach. He could dial it up. Coach Morgan was real good.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I remember.
Y'all work. Yeah, y'all work together.
Yeah. I remember old Coach, man. Coach can he can get it.
I hired Coach at Mississippi Delta when I got there.
Oh, okay. How's he doing now, anyway?
He's doing good. He's doing really good. Moving around, had some surgeries on his knees, and
I knew that was his deal. He played at UCLA with what was the quarterback's name? Matter of fact, he donated. Nuss something like that. Yeah. Them days at UCLA. But
hey, Coach.
Go ahead. Coach.
No, I was just going to ask Coach on that same line, Coach. Looked like I got a young nephew that just recently graduated Alcorn State, was an all-conference player over there, and he had the desire to get into coaching. What kind of advice would you give him, Coach?
Just reach out, you know, to as many people you can via email, social media, but pull up to some of these locations. You know, we get thousands of emails and texts, but the ones who show up, you know, they got a high probability of getting them jobs because you sit there and say, man, this man committed. You know, he pull up in the building, like, what you doing in my building? And you sell yourself, and that's what you got to do, you know. And now, so I tell any young coach, you know, reach out social media, you know, email, but then, hey, look, put that gas in your car the same way you go pick up them Jordans and go get them nice outfits. You got to invest in yourself and pull up on these campuses and sit down face to face. It's hard to tell a young, hungry, you know, black male man no, you know, in face, because a lot of times they won't take it, you know, and you see the commitment. And so I would say, you know, whatever his top 5 schools are, just pull up on, you know, and you know, finesse their reception the same way you do Tanisha Tyler and the rest of it. And don't leave without seeing Coach. And a lot of times they'll say, man, this young man committed, and you'll get them opportunities.
All right, thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. And I'll pass on the information to my nephew.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, look, you don't met a whole bunch of coaches, Rocky. Now, shit, you need to slide his name on in there.
Well, Coach, here's one of the things I like, Coach, and this is with my kids too. What are you willing to do to get an opportunity? I know what I'm willing to do for you, but what are you willing to do? And that's why I asked Coach, what would you suggest he do? I know I could pick up the phone and call Coach Thomas. I got a nephew, whatever. But when he arrive on that campus, I want it to be his dream, not mine. I wanted him to be there because he wanted to be there, not because I told him to be there. That's why I asked Coach, what would he suggest him to do?
Coach, I got you. Well, Coach, man, look, you know, like I said, we ain't going to hold you long. I know, you know, you got some things that you were dealing with, and you guys had your last scrimmage. Y'all open up next week, too?
Yeah, we just got done Saturday. We had our last one Saturday. Okay. You know, so we open up on Thursday, the 28th. So we'll be off tomorrow trying to get in that film, just find out who Northwestern is and get the rolling.
Yeah, you guys beat Northwestern last year, and they struggling right now. And I think it's a great opener for you guys. Of course, you got to win the football game, but I think it's a great opener.
They didn't play Northwestern last year, Coach.
Or was it the year before?
Probably about 4 years ago. Maybe
Okay.
It was before I got here, but it was about 4 years ago.
Okay, and Northwestern is, they've been struggling a lot. So I thought it was a great opener that I see. But Coach, I appreciate you, man, your time, your effort. We'll be reaching out to you maybe sometime in the middle of the year, to bring you on to see how you were doing. I'm always sold on you. So I appreciate your time and effort, guys.
Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Campbell.
Yes, sir.
All right, man, that was, Coach Thomas is always influential and always upbeat and, positive about the program. And he was right there, Coach, 6-6, man. You know what I'm saying? He was right there, and they end up losing to Southern. Like you said, Southern came back on him, beat him 38-35. He was right there.
Well, Coach, I was at that game, Coach. That was Southern's homecoming, and they were right there, Coach. Coach. A lot of people would say they were primed to win that game, but they kept trying to throw that football, Coach, and it had some bad things happen. Sometime, and then credit to Coach Graves and his staff. In the second half, Southern decided we were not going to run the ball. We're not going to try to pass it again the rest of the game. We're going to run it every play, and that's what they did. And they were able to come back running the ball, Coach, and secure a victory. So I'm really excited to see what kind of product Coach Thomas and his staff is going to put on the field. He seemed extremely excited about the guys he got outside at the wide receiver position. He didn't give us a lot of indication about who or what kind of guy would be delivering the ball. I think that probably that was strategic. But I'm looking forward to if they're going to catch the ball, he better have somebody who can throw it to him, Coach.
I'll be honest, man. Our conference always had, one or two or even three quarterbacks that was nationally, ranked and that could really, really do it. It's you feel kind of naked where you can't really be talking about a top quarterback coming out of the SWAC conference these days. But like I said, I think the offense, the spread offense had a lot to do with it because you threw a lot of bubble screens. You either ran the football, you didn't throw nothing way down the field. So I kind of miss those days and times, but maybe one of these guys out of the conference come out on top and be a 3,000-yard passer.
Coach, I got on good account, Coach. This is I can't give up any names, anything like this. But I got on good account that the quarterback competition at Alabama State is proven to be a sensational one, and they have I believe they're close to settling on a quarterback, but whoever they choose is gonna be dynamic and sensational. And I got that on good account.
Yeah.
That they are very happy with their quarterback room at Alabama State.
Yeah, I just spoke with a guy that's lived there in Montgomery, and he goes over and watch him practice. And he says Andrew Body is amazing. He said
Coach, you gave it away, Coach.
Well, I don't know if that's what you talk about.
But I mean, I've heard, yeah.
He playing at another level, and he understands the offense. He's settled in. He's got that shoulder fixed and done, and they said he could do it any kind of way you want it, up, down, spin. Say he like a man playing a Tecmo Bowl.
Wow!
Come hit and spin off for you. So I'm looking forward. I'm excited for the kid. I mean, if you ever met this kid, man, you would fall in love with him. Not just as a football player, but as a human being. And he's a super kid, man. And I hope that he can play injury-free football.
Coach, let me ask you this here, and I'm gonna bring Campbell in on this. It seems like the majority of the quarterbacks, you can put them all in one bag and shake them up using your analogy, Coach, and pull one out, and it hadn't made a difference, Coach.
Right.
Campbell, Coach, in these last 3 to 4 years where that's been the case, there's been a lot of interest in the SWAC, but do you think that has affected the growth of the SWAC and the interest in it?
What are you talking about? The quarterback play?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, this is the thing. All right. I can cut on the NFL right now. They got teams that don't have good quarterbacks. I can go in the SEC right now. There are several SEC teams that do not have good quarterbacks. They're hard, and Coach will tell you, as being a quarterback, the hardest position to get and to work with and to develop at any level is that quarterback position. So I think we're no different than all of football. If you got a great quarterback, you're lucky. It's more luck than skill. Because when you look at all these schools, they're multi-millions of dollars they're paying for NIL for quarterbacks. And some of them still don't have a quarterback. So that's why I kind of, when I hear this, it's always been hard to develop quarterbacks. It's always, you don't have a bunch of squads that everybody's just got a lights out quarterback. Because if you did, then we would have a different conversation. But for me, what I'm seeing and what I think the difference, and Coach can talk about this, is what I want to see these coaches do is what when Coach was coaching and when Coach was getting coached, we had coaches that developed quarterbacks. That's what Willard was great about. What I'm curious to see now, what I like, you see Jacoby Morgan. I'm looking, T.C. Taylor was a quarterback. T.C. Taylor was also a wide receiver. They've been working with that kid. I'm expecting Jacoby Morgan. Hey, he got 3 wide receivers that could go get it. That kid should be able to toss it this year. He's been in the system 3 years and coaching. So the question is, A, have you been in the system long enough, and do you have somebody that's going to coach? I think Coach Bird's down at FAMU. I think whoever's going to win that quarterback job is going to look good because I think Coach Bird is a hell of a quarterback coach. I think that's going to mean something. So that's what my thing is. But I think it's hard to find quarterbacks, first of all. Second of all, it's also you got to have the right guy to coach the quarterback.
Well, without a doubt, he has to have some talent himself. And like you say, you got to be able to develop him as well. It's just, unfortunately, I'm trying to think back when the last big-time quarterback came out.
Shedeur
Sanders, yeah. Well, yeah, we had, 2 years with him?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had 2 years with him, and then Andrew Body was he was coming, you know what I'm saying, but then he ended up transferring and never got back on his feet. I can't think of another one that really just stood out. You know what I'm saying?
I want to say when I went back and watched highlight film from this guy, and I mentioned this to G, Felix Harper, I thought Felix Harper was gonna be lights out that 2021 season, but it seemed like he never could get on track that year. But again, my point is, if there was a star at the quarterback position that would resonate outside of the SWAC, I think with the popularity and the eyes that are on it, it could potentially grow or create a buzz, that could be transformational. Because, like I say, I think if Andrew Body can become that guy, a guy like Andrew Body, who is a dynamic, super quarterback, in my opinion, has what you can say what he wants to, but at one point he was pretty much everything was on his shoulders at Texas Southern. If he can become the guy that I think he can, he can become that guy that must see TV. And we just haven't had that guy since Shedeur left, or any other guy has been even close. You're muted, Coach.
Yeah, Shedeur done some great things, but he got sacked a lot, in our conference. He did a lot of because he was so overconfident, a lot of times he held the ball and went for the big throw. So for just a regular fan watching him, they're like, oh man, he was off the chain. You know, for me watching him sometimes, and then they start getting on the old line for him getting sacked when a lot of times it wasn't the old line, it was him not getting rid of the ball or him trying to throw the big one. So, but I mean, he did dominate the league. You know, Campbell, I wouldn't mind you going back and look. Besides him, it was when the last time we had a 3,000-yard passer.
Well, Akil Glass probably, right?
Who?
Akil Glass probably.
Akil Glass.
Yeah,
Glass.
But
when the last time, in y'all's opinion, that there's been a player in the SWAC that's been must-see TV?
Well, I would say this.
Well, you got to say Shedeur Sanders.
But I'm just saying, outside of Shedeur, has there been another guy? Who would you guys have said is must-see TV in the past 15 years?
Well,
15, 20 years.
I think Shedeur comes because of his celebrity also and things. But I'm going to tell you something. And anybody that watched those Grambling teams that went, Devontae Kincaid was that guy. He was that guy. And I mean, he was not the guy. He made plays with his legs. He made plays offense. He did comeback drives. He was a master of that offense. Devontae Kincaid, when I'm just thinking about just really quick, just right off the rip, I'm thinking about Devontae Kincaid just really quickly. Man, now you start thinking about
What about the quarterback from Florida A&M? I didn't like him, but you know he put up some good numbers. The one,
I think Musa.
Yeah,
Musa.
Musa.
What I like about Musa's second year is that when you have that much talent, Musa made the play to get it to the talent. Yeah. It was a lot of things. You know, we got guys in the all them guys. You got 3 or 4 guys on the offense that's in the NFL. Yeah. Right. So when you got guys like that, that was the thing that Musa did from year 1 to year 2. Was like
Musa was okay. Yeah. You know, I'm not gonna say he wasn't no good, but he was okay. But you know, I wouldn't have never, you know, just loved to say, oh man, let me come and see him throw, because he would throw an interception and turn that ball over a whole bunch. You know,
because I watched Reggie Flood's lives several times. He always brings up this guy Willie Quinn, and I'm not. I mean, I know the name because of Reggie Flood has brought him up. He's not a quarterback, but he was I imagine a wide receiver, running back type of guy.
I felt that kid that was at Mississippi Valley last year that transferred to Jackson State.
Oh, yeah, remember?
Wimber.
We didn't get a chance to see him a lot, though, Coach.
Well, I seen him live against A&M the last of the season, Coach. They brought him out the backfield, called swing routes, called under routes, called corner routes, called go routes. He's
going to be a problem in Jackson State.
Yes,
it's going to be a big problem.
Yes.
Hey, Coach, let me tell you something. And other fam, you know that.
Yeah.
You know, we just saw that kid run that same play that Prairie View ran. He ran even faster to score a touchdown.
Yeah. So we got Coach Robinson. I mean,
Coach Shea coming on at 7:00. We're gonna close this one out, man, and we're gonna bring on Sam Shade at 7:00. Go ahead and get your. Some of y'all probably would just be eating dinner. See, I'm in the South, and in Texas, about 7:00, you're getting your second plate. Ain't that right, Campbell?
Yes.
You get that right after church.
See, a single guy, we got to get in when we finish. A single guy might be getting ready to try to run through a drive-through real quick. See, you got that good, nice wife that you and Coach have been married. See, a single guy, we got to figure it out. We be at a sports bar right about now, still drinking.
Hey, Coach, I tell you this, my kitchen is clean as a whistle, so we in the same boat today, Campbell.
Well,
but no, I'm just telling.
I actually cooked today.
Oh, okay. So you put it down, Coach. You chefed it up today, huh?
Yeah, man. I made some water chicken. You cooked the chicken in water. You ever heard of that?
No, Coach. That's called boiled chicken, Coach.
No, man. You put it in a skillet and you cook it with water. You add some mustard, some ketchup, some soy sauce, some garlic, some paprika, and black pepper, Oh man, and you mix that thing up, man. You keep that water in there, see, make that water turn into gravy. You know what I'm saying? I had to send y'all the recipe.
Coach,
It makes it bad. I know my family likes so much. They had me cook it again today. So
water chicken, huh, Coach?
Yeah,
water chicken. Water
All
chicken.
right, Coach. Hey, I've never had. Now we done had smothered chicken. I ain't never had water chicken, Coach. All right, Coach. We just go.
About 45, huh?
Yes, sir, Coach. Hey, much love, everybody. We'll be back, and we'll let Coach do his at the end of the rope thing on the next one.
Yes, sir. We're out. Peace.